Blue and red lights were flashing across my front yard, bouncing off the white fence like sirens had invaded my life. And right there, in the middle of it all, HOA. Karen was pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. The tow truck was already at the gate, its hook swinging like it had every right to steal my truck. And two cops were stepping onto my lawn because this woman claimed I was dangerous. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about fines or flags anymore. This was war. And my whole life was about to be dragged through the mud by a woman who thought she owned the entire neighborhood. I had moved to Willow Creek for peace. Not this circus. My name's David Ross, though most just call me Dave. I'm a builder. Wood, metal, stone, if it needs fixing, I fix it. I bought the house at the end of Maple Ridge Lane because of the oak tree out front, the porch that caught morning light, the way it reminded me of my dad sitting on a rocker telling dumb jokes while I tried to act serious. That was the life I wanted. Simple, quiet, steady. And for the first few weeks, it almost felt like I had it. I helped shovel a neighbor's driveway, fixed a fence board, even tried baking cookies that tasted more like drywall, but at least the kids down the street smiled when I handed them out. I thought I was settling into the kind of neighborhood where kindness mattered. Then she showed up. Her name was Karen Myers, HOA president, walking up my path in a blazer like she was running for Congress. She handed me a binder thicker than a phone book and said, "Read the rules. Keep your truck out of sight." I laughed at first. 5-minute limits on garage doors, neutral, color porch furniture, even sticky notes she'd slapped in that binder that clearly weren't part of the original bylaws. But she wasn't joking. She wasn't asking. She was setting the tone. She owned this block, and I'd better learn fast. I tried. God, I tried. I painted my porch swing gray. I put lattice around the trash cans. I played by her rules even when they made no sense. But on Memorial Day, I hung a small American flag by the steps, thinking of my dad and everything he stood for. Karen showed up under that flag like it was a personal insult. "You didn't ask permission," she snapped. I told her, calmly. "It's a national flag, Karen. State law protects it," she sneered. "Our rules are clear." I pointed right at her sticky notes. "Your notes are clear. The bylaws are not." Her smile was sharp as a knife. "You'll be receiving a notice." And sure enough, the next day, a $2,000 fine for an unauthorized display. That was the spark. I wasn't about to pay $2,000 for respecting the flag. I wrote a letter, laid out the law word for word, walked it over to the clubhouse, and put it in her hand. She didn't even glance at it, just tapped her watch and said, "Deadline's tomorrow." I walked away, boiling inside, but I told myself to stay calm. That's what my dad always said. When someone raises their voice, lower yours. Be strong the quiet way. But quiet doesn't stop a bully. Karen posted my address on the community app, blasted me as a rule breaker, got people piling on with comments and thumbs down emojis. One night, someone even slid a note under my door. "Pay your fine. Don't make trouble." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about turning the whole neighborhood against me. And it worked. Some neighbors crossed the street instead of saying hi. Some looked at me like I was contagious. But there were still a few small sparks of decency. Mr. Whitman, the retired teacher, would wave and talk tools with me. Little Mia, riding her purple bike with the streamers, would yell, "Hi, Mr. Dave," like nothing was wrong. Those moments kept me from snapping. But every time I opened the mailbox, there it was, another notice, another threat. Then came the red paper. Final warning. $2,600 due immediately. Pay or face enforcement. Enforcement. That word stung. I knew what it meant, but I never expected it to hit like it did. Because, the next morning, Karen made good on her threat. She called the cops. She called a tow truck. And suddenly, my lawn was lit up like a crime scene. She pointed at me, telling the officers I was hostile, that I refused to comply. I held up the paper and said, "I'm not paying $2,000 for a flag that the law protects." Her smile faltered, just for a second, but then she clutched her wrist and gasped. "He threatened me." My jaw clenched so hard I thought it might crack. I hadn't laid a finger on her. But those officers, they hesitated, shifted their stance. One of them even moved closer with his hand on his cuffs. And all I could think was, am I about to lose everything because of one lie? That night, sitting on the porch with my dog Daisy curled up at my feet, I broke down. Not with tears. I don't cry easily, but with doubt. Maybe I should just pay. Maybe I was wrong to fight. Maybe I was the one ruining the peace I'd moved here to find. I texted my sister, and she told me, "You're not a fighter. You're a builder. Build peace." I wanted to believe that, but I felt crushed, cornered. For the first time, I thought about giving up. But then the tow truck nearly killed Mia. She had slipped away from her mom, riding down the sidewalk just as the driver revved his engine, the hook clanking against my bumper. I saw her in the path of that truck, and I didn't think, I just ran. My legs hit the ground hard. I grabbed her bike handlebars, yanked her out of the way, and shoved her toward safety just as the truck slammed into my oak tree. The sound was like thunder cracking the sky. When the dust settled, Mia was safe, clinging to her mother and crying. The neighbors gasped, whispered, pointed. Some said I was a hero. "Karen?" She sneered and shouted, "He staged this. He's dangerous." But people saw. People knew. That was the moment everything shifted. For the first time. She wasn't untouchable. After that, more cracks appeared. Todd, one of the board members, came to me secretly with a USB drive, recordings of Karen threatening to ruin me or die trying. Lisa, another board member, slipped notes under my door, admitting Karen had altered the bylaws with her sticky notes. Mr. Whitman told me flat out, "Truth moves slower than lies, but it moves deeper. Hold steady, son." So I did, even when Karen plastered a bright red sign in my yard calling me a community violator. Even when she filed a bogus restraining order to keep me from the clubhouse. Even when she forged papers and tried to stage a fake eviction by sending movers to unload boxes on my lawn. Each time, I pushed back with proof. Not fists. But the war wasn't done. Karen went nuclear. When the clubhouse burned down from faulty wiring, she stood in the street screaming that I set the fire. The sheriff had no choice but to arrest me in front of everyone. Cold steel on my wrists. Daisy barking like she was being torn apart. Neighbors watching as Karen smiled like a queen who'd won her battle. Sitting in that holding cell, I thought, this is it. She's finally broken me. But the fire chief's report came back. Faulty wiring, not arson. I was released. And when I walked out, I knew, if I didn't end this, she would keep going until I had nothing left. So I fought the way I knew how, with truth. At the courthouse, I laid down the binder, opened it to the bylaws, and showed the judge the sticky notes in Karen's handwriting. I played the recordings Todd and Lisa had given me. Karen's voice echoed through the room. "We'll crush him until he begs to leave." The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp, and said, "Miss Myers, this is fraud. This is harassment. This will be investigated." Karen's face went pale. Her lawyer tried to speak, but the damage was done. The deputies escorted her out, her heels clacking like broken glass. And for the first time since I moved to Maple Ridge Lane, the air felt clean again. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just stood there, breathing slow, looking around at the neighbors who'd watched me be dragged through hell. Some met my eyes with gratitude, some with guilt, some with quiet shame for ever believing her lies. Karen was gone, not in spirit, maybe, but in power. She'd lost everything the second truth came out. That night, I sat under the oak tree, Daisy leaning against my leg. The neighborhood finally quiet. The house I bought wasn't just a house anymore. It was proof that no matter how loud the lies get, no matter how heavy the pressure, truth has a way of cutting through. And as I stared at the porch light glowing soft against the dark, I realized the lesson I'd carry with me forever. The loudest bully in the room always thinks she's in control, until the truth shows up and takes it all away.